If we assholes have offended, think but this, and all is mended. That we have been drinking beers while we rant into your ears, and these drunken, nerdy screams just as pointless as they seem. Gamers, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend. And as we are but stupid fucks, perhaps our podcast truly sucks, but if you let us prove you wrong, we'll speak of games for an hour long. And as we drink until we fall, we wish game on unto you all. So raise your glass if we be friends, and GameRage shall begin again. Hey everyone, welcome back to GameRage. We're here having a good time, drinking, as always. I'm Dan, that's Tychos, Stas on the PlayStation Network, and Tychos on the Nintendo Switch and Steam. I am currently drinking some weird concoction that I made that has whiskey, Evan Williams whiskey, blue curacao, amaretto, and a dash of liquid smoke.
Only one of those things really doesn't belong, and it's the blue curacao.
I like the sound of liquid smoke, though.
Hell yeah.
It's not bad.
It stinks up the house.
I mean,
Don't call Dan
I'm pretty
an
sure it's worth it.
And then it goes out and buys liquid smoke. What am I going to do here? Anyway, so that's me. Who's next?
I guess I'll go.
Go for it.
I'm Liz. That's Blavey on the PlayStation. That's BLAYYBEE, and I'm drinking a Heineken.
A Heineken.
Heineken.
Drinking that
Taste
butt
the
beer.
Heine.
Yerp.
My Heine can't do anything.
She's butt chugging.
Ew,
Hold
no!
on,
That's
I absolutely am not.
Listeners, you'll never know for sure.
You and Lev, both managed to take something that I say and, just amplify it into the most disgusting version. You guys are like perverted kaleidoscopes.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my god! That's totally the name of my roller derby team.
I was going to say, that'd be a great band name, though. The Perverted
Right?
Kaleidoscopes.
Perverted
God.
kaleidoscopes.
You just fragment everything that I say and spin it off into a million different fucking absurd, perverse directions that I absolutely
You
did
stumbled
not
on something
mean.
awesome.
Yeah. I was pretticularly proud of the clown porn thing yesterday.
Ugh,
Yeah, that was
Which,
good.
yeah.
not be proud of that.
All I could say, though, was, God damn it. That was all I could say. I'm like,
For those who aren't inside on that joke, you're welcome. Because you might have nightmares when you try to sleep. So
who just made a clown honking noise? Who did that?
had to be Gran.
That was me.
Like, well, you like laughing like clown all the time, but I don't know,
Oh,
you
yeah,
could
that's
do a
true.
fucking, bike horn honk honk.
He's like the guy from Police Academy.
Well, that's
He is
you,
not.
you gotta honk your
Yeah,
nose
well,
when it
yeah.
comes.
Anyway,
Gran, what are you drinking, buddy?
Oh shit! I am drinking hop. Oh, anyway. I'm David Cranvey. For anyone who hasn't met me yet,
all right.
I'm currently drinking Hoppy Anniversary Ale from Sierra Nevada. It's it appears to be their 40th year anniversary for this
shit.
particular
wow.
brewery, which is
long
kind of
time.
amazing. They, I was reading the description on the back, and it looks like they, the whole point of this particular anniversary beer is to try to not be super extra special, but be like this is supposed to be just a super crisp, nice, standard IPA. Basically, this is the nice, like a regular version, essentially.
Oh, back to basics, huh?
Yeah, let's see, it's got a pine and citrus flavor, deep gold color, a slight caramel sweetness. It's supposed to be this is what an IPA is supposed to be.
Are you reading from the label?
I read a little bit from the label, but that last part was me. That was not them. I wanna make sure I'm giving them props because they
He
deserve it.
added
With
one
this
line.
I did not. No, I added well, I actually took a whole lot out, but anyway, it's a good beer. I like this. This is very nice. Oh, I am Dr. Stroganoff on the PlayStation Network. I haven't been playing Heroes of the Storm too often.
Wait, no, you're not talking about what you're playing.
Whoa. Pump the brakes.
Yeah, geez.
Well, no, I meant.
Ooh, calm
as
down
far as
there,
like on
cowboy.
BattleNet. I
Yeah, we don't
am
need to hear
still on
about that.
BattleNet as Kyrian.
You can just mention
what's
who you
funny
are.
is
God, we
everyone
got
under
him
the
off
age
of that for
30 is-
so long.
Everyone under the age of 30 is like, what's a BattleNet?
Unfortunately. Fucking Activision.
Fucking Treyarch. I know they're two different people. Anyway.
So that's it. That's me.
Fuck them all.
Fuck all those guys. My name's Ev. I'm Booze Radley on the PlayStation and the Switch. That's B00ZERADLY. And I'm drinking. I made this new drink with. It's like a powdered thing. You take these little packets and you pour them in some water. And then you like stir it up.
Oh my god.
You stir it up, and it makes like this
Like
amazing.
when you say like this powder, would you describe it as crystal-esque?
It's crystalline. It's like a crystal-like powder, but it's not like as thick as a crystal. It's like a crystal. It's like a light crystal. Maybe,
Okay. So like when you're
the crystal-
carrying
I
a
was about to ask
crystal,
how
you're like,
dark
this is
it is.
awfully heavy, but this you're like, this is not that. This is like the
This is pretty
opposite of
light.
heavy. Whatever
Yeah,
that is.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's called. Well, actually, the brand is called Opposite of Heavy Crystalline, and and then
good name.
the stuff I put in it is really similar to it's this weird. It's like a foreign liquor. It's Russian. I don't know what it stands for. I don't know what the word is in English, but in Russian, it is pronounced Svedka. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe one of our listeners can
Probably a
chime in
rum.
with. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like a clear rum,
Like a clear Russian rum. Yeah.
but it tastes
I know what
more
you're
so
talking
than sugarcane. It kind of tastes like potatoes.
Potatoes.
So, potatoes.
So it must be
Yes.
Irish then. I think you're mistaken. It's obviously Irish.
An Irish rum.
Irish.
So I got my Opposite of Heavy Crystalline mixed with some Irish rum called Svedka,
God damn
and
it.
it is delicious.
So, speaking of drinks, though, it is important to note that, just as we mentioned in a previous episode, Ev's birthday was, well, just
yeah.
after the last episode released, and we
Hell
celebrated
yeah!
it recently, and we made Bear's Big Shot, as mentioned
Yeah.
in episode 146. As seen in episode 146, and it fucked us up.
Oh my god, dude. There's
We had a lot
photos
of
of
fun.
me leaned over the counter wrapped in paper towels. With cake
With
smear
cake
on my
on your
face.
face.
That was a very terrifying paper towel monster.
Oh, I was in it. Eat
God.
it!
I'd
The only way to
remember,
defeat you
like,
was to literally slap cake in your face.
it's important to note that like Ev and I were the only ones drinking them. Everybody else was being
Yeah.
smart and drinking other things. So not like the
Oh, I
situation
took
you're
a sip.
describing. I remember seconds at a time of it. Like I remember a few seconds, and then I remember another few seconds.
Yeah. People keep telling me
rest of
about
it is
things
gone.
that happened at the party.
I took one sip of your guys' drink, and I was like, this is a bad idea.
But God damn it, did we have fun? And I will say,
It was delicious.
Yeah.
I was not hungover the next morning. Like very slightly, like I kind of like very
Yeah.
very mild, but like I was expecting to feel like shit based on how trashed I got. I felt
Yeah.
great the next day. I went for a run. I saved a
It's
baby.
like it's like
It
doing
was
a
great.
cleanse, but it's like a cleanse for your liver.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it
And
is.
it's the opposite of that.
I blessed some nuns. It was incredible.
Yeah, right? Alcohol be with
felt
you.
like a-
Alcohol be with you.
I felt like a beautiful human.
Yeah.
You were all beautiful that night.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
So are you, but for a different reason.
I saw the
Um,
real use.
Yeah. Dana, what are you playing?
Oh, I am playing. So, I actually picked up this game a little bit after the last record, and then have since beaten it. I had like 2 weeks. It wasn't a super long
shit.
game, but the game is called Deliver Us the Moon.
Oh.
So it's like a sci-fi thriller. The basic like premise is that in the near future, the Earth's resources have been used up. You know, like in Firefly. But of course, the technology isn't nearly as advanced. So scientists have devised a way to get energy from the moon. But one day, the power transmitter that's been working for years, that's on the moon, suddenly stops, leaving the Earth with no energy. Practically, all that's left is like some reserves, you know, from that transmitter. And 5 years later, they've gathered enough resources to send you to the moon to discover what happened and ideally reactivate the transmitter in order to give power back to the planet and save it. It's an interesting game. Again, it's like sci-fi. I guess I will give like a really brief review. It's an interesting story. Excuse me. It's an interesting story. It has a good mystery because you're like trying to figure out what happened on this planet. It's really intriguing and engaging. It's well paced. There's a good balance of like tense moments as well as exploration and problem solving. The main game is exploration and problem solving, but every so often like something like action packed will happen or some like really tense moment where you're really close to death. Think like the movie Gravity and kind of things like that, where you're like, you know, think you're gonna run out of oxygen, or you're like, you know, trying to not hurtle through space or some shit like that. So those are the pros. The cons, I would say that the puzzles are like never like too difficult, which I don't like as a person who likes puzzle games. Like nothing is ever like too hard. Like usually the solution can be figured out within like a few seconds, and then like there's not really generally. Sometimes the challenge is like completing an action, but that's never really too hard, short of like one moment where it got a little frustrating and difficult, but it was like late game and I got through it eventually and it was fine. And then also, as far as like if it's a sci-fi thriller, there's really not much of the thriller part. Like there's those tense moments, but it just doesn't have that. I'm finding that this genre of game is like among one of my favorites, because like every single time I see a game like this on the store, I'm like, oh my god, that looks amazing. I have to try it. And this one is a good game, but it just didn't capture that same feeling of joy and excitement that I get from other other similar games in the genre. And it just wasn't as thrilling. It really wasn't as I was expecting it to be a little bit scary, because a lot of times like thriller games have some like a horror element somewhere or something like that, but I just I didn't get that from this one. It really wasn't that scary. It was just more about the mystery and solving it. But that said, it was still a good game. I'd say overall I give it an 8 out of 10. It's not, like I said, not as good as some of the others I've played in the same genre.
That's still pretty high praise.
Yeah.
It's still a good game. It's just not as good as like The Fall or Observer or Swapper, but those games really blew me away. It's still entertaining though, so I'd recommend it.
And I like the fact that it's not scary.
That is definitely a pro for you.
Damn right. Oh, nice. I did see that on the store. Which, shit, what day will this come out? Because there might be some No, we'll talk about it on the next episode.
Alright.
Never mind. You know when the news bulletin is like, and the anchor's like, never mind. Go back to your business.
Yeah, my favorite kind of news broadcast. Forget about it, folks.
Alarm.
You probably don't need to worry.
We'll tell you later. This is lazy news.
We're fucking busy.
Oh, you think we'll fucking sit around all day waiting to tell you fucking news? No, we got shit to do.
I do have one piece of news, which is I managed to hit Bezel in the face with a beer bottle just now, and it broke.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
It was awesome.
Did you just smashed a beer bottle on my dog's face?
Yeah. What you gonna do about it?
I'm gonna keep fishing.
You are a monster.
Yeah.
You're looking at too drunk to shoot you. There you go.
My head. I was wobbling too much from all the alcohol.
Let this be a lesson, kids. Don't throw beer bottles at dogs.
Or else you'll get shot by a mysterious stranger.
Yes.
Oh, Cran, I almost killed you.
Or a beautiful stranger.
What?
Nothing.
Let's
Who's
see.
next?
Oh, Liz
Liz?
actually went second, so Liz's turn for
Yeah.
what's she playing?
are you playing?
I finished Kakarot. Well, I shouldn't say that I finished. I have stopped playing it for now because I platinumed it.
You are at a actually I should say past a point that any reasonable person would have been like, I finished this game.
Yeah.
But there's still more to do, so in her mind she hasn't finished it.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I'm not judging her. We all have that game that's like, I need to do every possible thing in
Right.
this game, and that is this
Right,
game for Liz,
yeah.
so.
And I realized that I never
Game
rated
singular?
it. So
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna rate it, and I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10
Wow.
because I really
That's
I enjoyed it so much, and I thought that the gameplay was really fun, and it had so many different things to do, and I thought that it was pretty varied, and I liked the level up system. Like the DLC was really unique. The only thing is, like the only reason I don't give it a 10 out of 10 was because there are like some weird bugs. And then
Like
some
silverfish?
of the what?
like silverfish.
Yeah, like silverfish.
All over the place.
And then
It's a weird bug.
some of the story missions can
What are all
get,
these
or some of
silverfish doing here?
some of the side missions can get a little stale after a while. Some of them repeat, or some of them are just like really like fetch questy. So that's the only
yeah,
reason why I
yeah.
don't give it a 10 out of 10. But overall, like an amazing game. Like I really can't recommend it enough. Like I would recommend it to people who like aren't even Dragon Ball fans, but especially if you're a Dragon Ball fan, like you have to play this game. Like it's amazing. So
Dang, dude, that's awesome.
yeah. So
I would
what?
give it a different rating.
Yeah.
The second rating.
Dan wants to weigh in.
I'm sorry. Like I just you know. It's a good game. I'd probably give it like a 7.5 out of 10. It's a good game. I think it's good for people who like Dragon Ball, but it's got its flaws.
Have you played through it, Dan, or are you just basing that on your viewing?
I'm almost done with it. I'm in the Boo Saga right now.
Oh, got it.
Ooh, I'm gonna try to catch an
nice. I'm trying to catch Chris's fish with my hands before he catches it with his pole. It's not really working. Yeah, I mean that's what happens on IGN, man. You get the critic review, and then you get the user review, and you gotta find it somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, so
Right.
it's just to give it another
Nice.
thought, but it's still a good game.
Yeah, right on.
I did
right on.
pick up another game. It's by the makers of Oxenfree. It's called After Party.
Oh, nice.
And I was really excited about it because I really liked Oxenfree a lot. It's Oxenfree. I've talked about it before. It's mostly like dialogue based, and this one is too. Like it's very similar. You have like dialogue tree options. The premise is that you and your best friend, it's a guy and a girl, Milo and Lola. You died and went to hell. And yeah, unexpectedly, you don't even know how you died at this point.
Wow.
And
Oh boy.
the only way you can get out of hell is to outdrink and outparty Satan himself.
Oh my
So,
God.
You're basically trying to get
He doesn't know what he's up against.
So I started the game, and it's mostly like dialogue, you know, like trying to solve puzzles using like cunning in different situations. And the game mechanic is that you can order different drinks at different bars, and the drinks give you different things. So like one of the drinks might give you like liquid courage, and you have an extra dialogue tree option that's very bold. Or a drink that you order might make you particularly flirty. So if you're drinking that drink, then you have an extra dialogue tree option that's very flirtatious. And it's interesting, but unfortunately it's not really grabbing my attention in the way that I wanted it to. And I don't think that it's like I don't think it's necessarily a bad game. I just think that like coming off of Kakarot, I really like was itching for something like a lot more engaging, and unfortunately the gameplay is just really slow. Like you're just kind of walking around, talking to people, drinking these drinks. So I'm hoping that it picks up, but I'm kind of like, it's one of those that I really have to like force myself to pick up and play.
Yeah, yeah. That's always tough. I mean, and it's we talked about that before. Like going from one game to another can be such like a lurching feeling.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. It's a bummer.
So, yep, that's me.
It's,
Well,
it's
you know,
weird
and
when you leave like one game because like sometimes you're in the mood for something entirely different, but sometimes you're kind of in the mood to like chase that same like high that you got from that similar experience. So sometimes like you try something and it just doesn't fill that gap. You're like trying to look for something new, but you realize you wanted something more like the other thing or completely. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Like it's such a weird feeling, like post game. So
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I haven't actually seen anything of that game, so I'm actually pretty excited to like look it up later.
Yeah. I think that you would really like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you would, and like I don't like at least just a game, and again, like I don't think it's a bad game by any means. Like it's just not what I need right now, and I'm gonna hang on to it, you know, and probably play it later. But yeah, I think it's something that you would really enjoy. I think you should look into it.
I do like drinking and Satan.
also, isn't you said Lola? Lily? What is it? Lola? Isn't she voiced by Ashley Birch?
No, one of the.
What?
Oh.
No, Ashley Birch is a voice actor in the game. She's she plays like a recurring character, but she's not one of the main characters.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
I think I just saw the guy talking to.
Sorry.
Girl, so.
Who is that?
You should light him on fire.
Some guy just literally just ran me over with his horse.
Wow.
Did you walk off the camp? There's other players. They can't get us as very. Go stay on the camp.
I'm standing majestically on a rock above the river.
That's okay. Crayon, what are you playing, buddy?
Yeah, Crayon.
Boy.
Well, obviously, I'm playing several games as usual. However, I've been playing some Outer Wilds.
Okay.
After the glorious recommendations that I've gotten from Dan. Yeah. And it is absolutely fascinating and adorable, and I absolutely love the physics in that game. It's
adorable.
Yeah,
just like me.
Exactly.
Well, no, I was gonna say half right, but no, neither of those are accurate now.
It's the exploration element in that game is excellent because of the fact that it gives you so many options of where you want to go, what you want to do. Like you, in a sense, choose your own difficulty.
This is true.
You have objectives in a sense, but as far as whether they're required or not. I don't really have a whole lot of guidance on that, and I kind of like that. It's more that I'm just hearing things that people are saying and saying, yeah, in this area there might be like someone playing this particular musical instrument.
Yeah,
that's kind of weird.
Sure.
That's a weird thing to do, but yeah, sure enough, I can like point my little signal interceptor or whatever and hear the music.
Oh yeah.
And then you go over there, and then if you happen to find the person, there's some interesting story. And then I finished one. I hesitate to use the word finish, but I was on one planet. I completed some little investigative task that I was kind of imposing upon myself, and then I start moving on to another planet, and then this weird like giant blue ball is just like encompassing my face. I'm like, what is going on? This is what the fuck is that thing? And then I die.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of realizing exactly what the mechanic is that Dan was talking about earlier, which I suppose this is a spoiler for anyone who wants to be playing that game. So Ev or Liz, if you guys happen to want to play, I won't.
She saw me play it.
Yeah.
But any listeners, go away now, and if you haven't played the game and you're at the least bit interested, do not listen to this following spoiler.
Yeah.
So
Get
jump
the
ahead
fuck out of here.
But it's giving me it's a mechanic that I haven't seen since Majora's Mask.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's you basically as soon as you start, you're on a time limit before the world ends, or I should say before I guess your solar system ends is a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
But as soon as it does, you, for some reason, end up restarting. But you remember exactly what happened during the previous cycle, which I don't know how the story relates to all of this, but it's very intriguing to me.
Yeah. You will learn, my friend. Yes,
yeah.
it is very
I absolutely love this mechanic.
Yes.
I love mechanics too when they fix my car and give me mints while I wait.
Like how many mints are they giving you?
Like so many fucking mints, dude. It always ends
you
up
need
on the
another
bill
mint,
afterwards.
bro?
But yeah.
Look like you need
hey,
something to suck on.
Toss me another mint. It's like, okay, you got it, Ev.
Not until my breath sparkles.
Sparkle breath. That's what I'm gonna name my next horse.
You're going through your stomach eating all these fucking mints, bro.
Don't you go shitting no fucking minty shits in my toilet when you're done.
Some delicious smelling fucking pristine shits. None of those in my toilet, you son of a bitch.
That's sparkly shit right there.
It's like an icebreaker.
Fucking disgusting hot shits only. I want fucking nuclear sauce shits in this toilet.
Nuclear sauce.
Disgusting.
You don't even have to polish that turd.
Ew. It's like a little brown diamond.
It's fucking beautiful. Give it to your wife. Fucking propose.
Give it to your wife. I want to go to this auto body shop. They will have all my business for the foreseeable future. Oh my god. So, speaking of sparkly shits, I recently, finally, at long fucking last, completed Uncharted 4!
Oh, man.
Nice.
Yeah, I did it, you guys. You know, it's one of those things, I don't know if it was that I didn't want it to end, or that I was so close to the end that I was like...
Or I didn't want to play it in the moment, or what?
Or like I didn't, or I was like playing Animal Crossing until my eyes were falling out of my head. I'm not sure. I don't know which of these things it was, but
I'm betting Animal Crossing.
Maybe it's the dark horse. But I jumped in and I did it, and it was very gratifying. And I mean, for anyone who hasn't played the game, you know, this is supposed to be the end for Nathan Drake, and there's going to be some light spoilers. I'm not going to talk about this forever, obviously, because obviously we have things to get to here. But the final boss fight with Rafe is fucking awesome.
Yes.
I was so glad that it wasn't a shootout, because it easily could have been. You'd expect it to be. You know, just like a bunch of fucking... shoreline goons, and you have to shoot them all, and there's a bunch of hard ones, but they're like, nope, it's a fucking pirate sword fight, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
On a
that is
fucking
amazing.
burning pirate ship, it was amazing.
Oh my god.
Really
And
so good.
well, and they meant, like, you know, the concern when they do stuff like that, because obviously that's like a classic Kojima move, and the concern is always like what Yahtzee says, like, this isn't what you've been training me for. Like, this is a shooting game with some light, like, melee elements, and to have a completely melee final boss is like, oh, this is risky. But they did it really well in the true cinematic style, with 2 dodge buttons for left and right and 1 attack button, and you really have to watch and anticipate his movements, but they don't make it like a one-hit kill, so you can fuck up a couple times, but like it's also scripted really well. Like, you know, you if you block enough times in a row, he like grabs Rafe's wrist, and then Rafe spins around, and you kind of spin under him and push him into a wall, and then you can attack. And it's like they didn't have to redesign the game for it to make it badass and effective, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, there's like 3 phases to it, and you know, the ship is burning, and Rafe looks like a psychopath, and like I definitely died like 2 or 3 times, because sometimes predicting his movements is tough, but it was so badass. And then I thought for sure that he was gonna have to leave Sam behind, and I was like, my immediate thought was like, wow, this dude got one game. He never existed. Then they brought him in and killed him. But like,
well, that's what he fucking
then,
deserves, honestly.
Well, yeah, he definitely doesn't deserve to be like, forgiven. Really, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if
he
he deserves to die, but okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny because, like, oh, what was I gonna say? He like, he saves him and he tries to like kind of redeem himself and but I think that it would have been fine if they killed him because what he said made sense. He's like, the only reason I've stayed alive so long was to find this treasure. Like, this is all I wanted to do was find this treasure with you. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. Like, that's a good note to die on. And then Drake's like, wait, I've got a convenient escape. And so he like, he manages to have like a fucking Metal Gear Solid 4 ending where everyone that matters lives. And
you should have been like, oh, Sam, didn't I tell you? I'm the luckiest motherfucker in the world.
Yeah.
And then like,
it just so happens that this cannon here is not only still functional but loaded. And so he blasts him out of there, and the last thing I'll say about the game is I love the kind of surprise at the end and the way that they transition into it because, Elena buys the diving company and she's like, oh, let's do what we always do but on the up and up with like legit paperwork. And it's like, oh, cool. And then they're like, well, who's going to have to do the paperwork? I'll play you for it. And then they throw you into Crash Bandicoot. And I was like, I don't really want to play this again. Like they already did this once. Like this isn't going to be fun. But then Cran, you've played it, right?
I have not.
have you played any of
okay.
those games?
Nope.
Well, do you...
No?
Don't worry about
So
spoilers. I'm good.
Okay. So basically, you... the first time you play it, you're Nate. And this time, when it zooms out of the game, it's their fucking daughter! And I was like, oh, that's awesome! That's like... I was not expecting that. And, so... Then you like bum around as his daughter and like you explore like their house and see how happy they are like living on a beach and like all the adventures they've had over the years and stuff, and it's just like really sweet. And it also kind of sets it up for possibly having future games as their daughter, which is pretty awesome. Yeah. So I thought that was a really cool way to do that, and I'm just really
daughter's
satisfied
name
with
Laura?
how they... No, what's her name? Callie? I don't remember, something like that. But I was legitimately satisfied. I was like, this was a solid ending. Like this was very cute.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it was good.
Yeah.
And real quick comment on because my favorite part of the game was definitely the sword fight. Just a quick jump back to that because I agree with everything else you said too. But I think with that, like. You mentioned like, oh well, it could have been a gunfight and the Yahtzee thing, which I think is a valid argument. But I think like that's once you're on like the fourth sequel, I think that's the time when it's really important that they do things like that, or like experiments. Like, let's not just do another gunfight because we've done that. How can we make this different? And it ends up like playing into the whole cinematic nature of the game and just making it a lot of fun to have that very, very badass sword fight. I mean, come on, it's a sword fight. Like, that's fucking great. So it was a really good design choice for them to like change it up and shake things up and give you this really great final memorable boss fight. That's very intimate, like in a way that the other ones were. Yeah, kind of. I mean, like because it's close quarters, and when I say intimate, I just mean close, together and. Very cinematic and very personal.
Sexy.
Oh, I meant sexual, just like old man fight.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume it was sexy.
Yeah. I just think it made Wraith. It really, because up to then he was just annoying and a priss, and like I really appreciated what was her name? Fuck. What is the mercenary lady's name? I always forget.
It starts with an N. It's not something, but I don't remember.
Would you say New Orleans?
No, I think it's
Nadine. Yeah.
Marlene? You're thinking of...
Marlene.
Shit, there is somebody named Marlene.
Yeah, I don't remember. Oh, she's like the bitchy British lady from the other game.
Oh.
I think.
Okay.
Maybe. Anyway.
Maybe. Who knows?
Anyway. Yeah. So I thought it was a great ending. I was really stoked, and I enjoyed it very much. And I will eventually give you back your copy of it.
You fucking better.
Eventually, it's gonna be a
Yep.
long time.
Eventually.
Eventually. Anyway, so everybody went, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, then. Let's get right into it. It's time for the topic. All right. So, the very best video game developers out there are constantly trying to find new ways to create the best gaming experience for the players. Sometimes a developer will discover an amazing innovation that takes the gaming world by storm and just becomes wildly popular. So popular, in fact, that every other developer begins trying to shoehorn it in to their own game, until it gets to the point where you're sitting at home waiting for the next round of Nintendo's Battle Royale to start and wondering where your life went wrong. This is when a great idea goes from a clever innovation to an overused trope. So today, we're going to take some time to discuss and dissect one of those tropes, as well as talk about some ways we think it can be done better. This is Trope Takedown. This is where I would have
Takedown.
Trope Takedown music.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, my trope! So, today's trope
Nice.
has to do with world building. So I think you'll all recognize the scenario. You're a few minutes into a new game, and you think, gee, this game's world seems so vast and intriguing. I sure do want to learn more about it, and I have no doubt that doing so will significantly improve my ability to enjoy this game. Until the game starts forcing audio logs, letters, notes, emails, and worst of all, books down your throat in an attempt to tell the whole story. A novel mechanic at first, but 13 or so years later, it's become clear that games have become a bit too reliant on this increasingly stale form of world building. So I wanted to take some time to talk about this. I wanted this to kind of be, a bit of a discussion. We can kind of go back and forth. Nobody has to lead or anything like that. But I really quickly, I guess a place to start is the one that made me start this topic was the audio logs, because that is in just every game nowadays. There's some form of it, and it was really, really great. Ev, as you remember, the first time we played BioShock, and it was this really novel thing. It was just this really cool way to, feed you some much-needed information without slowing things down. But it's just gotten to be so overused now. It's so expected now, and it's getting sad that they just can't find a better way to do that. What do you guys think?
I 100% agree, and it's funny because BioShock is such a classic example of that. I mean, it was a really great way at that time to give you backstory into this world that was basically dead or dying. Because that was the thing. There weren't really sane characters around to be like, "Hey, man, what's going on here?" It was everybody was already insane. So it was cool to hear that decline, but it's. Honestly, there's so many problems with it because, the main one that I always have is that you either have to stop what you're doing and listen to it, or you have to risk not hearing in-game audio of either, someone else trying to talk to you, or if you get into a gunfight, you can't fucking pay attention to the audio log. So it's just, there's a lot of frustrations. It's a very imperfect thing that I feel hasn't really been improved a lot on in a long time.
Yeah, it's always frustrating for me when you have to stop what you're doing. I've appreciated that some games have now improved that to where you can at least walk around and listen to it. But even still, I agree that it's still a risk to do that because what if you trigger a mission or something and somebody's trying to talk to you and the audio log is still going? There's a lot. Sometimes they don't really factor that in, and there's not a way to stop the log or whatever. So you have two sets of audio going at the same time, and it's annoying.
And you're missing both. You're missing both stories. It's bad enough when you have to favor one over the other and be okay, well, fuck it, I'll just listen to this. But it's even worse when you're missing both.
Yeah, and like I think what Liz said too about triggering something is always really annoying in games when like you're trying to you're just trying to continue moving through wherever you are, and then you have to sit there and kind of wait for the audio log to finish or whatever. So it really it kind of kills the pacing, and it really is like a good idea, but you're right. It has been like vastly overdone. And I'm sure that we all kind of came up with some potential alternatives. I know I thought of well, actually, you know what? I've thought of other games that do it in a cool way, with it, not necessarily like inventing new ones. But
there are plenty of alternatives that already exist.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely
like
something we can talk about as well, because like because I mean I agree. I agree with what you were saying about how it just slows things down, and it's even when BioShock kind of figured out a way to do it, but it's a real shame when it does like just completely stop gameplay. And that's kind of the issue with the other ones that I mentioned. Like even worse than audio logs are the emails where you find like a computer screen. Go ahead. No, you can talk about it. Go ahead. I mean, I was just kind of summing up this part, but go ahead.
Yeah.
You can comment.
No,
on
I mean
emails.
that's all I was. It was just about the emails. Like emails, I hate emails. Like whenever a game is like, I hate reading emails in real life. Why the fuck would game designers think that I want to read emails in games? Like especially when they're so long. Like oh my god, I hate having to sit there and read. Especially when it's like back and forth. Like Dan was showing me some game recently. I honestly can't remember what it was. But he was on again, like that's his thing now. Is like it was on like a space station, and he was like reading through these logs, and I was like, oh my god, I would never have the patience for that. Or Cran telling me about like these fucking books that are like in Skyrim. Like fuck that. I'm not like I would never in my life. Read that.
Just concerning that, some games will have those things added in, but they won't be necessary.
Well,
like
that's what we're talking about, Cran. The whole idea is like it's not necessarily the story, but it's effectively world build. Like you still want it to be entertaining.
But they don't force you to read them either.
Well, yeah, none of these are necessarily.
They don't. None of these games force you to.
Well,
but the problem is they're still not entertaining.
BioShock and Doom kind of did.
Well, BioShock, you could find the audio logs, but really that's kind of beside the point. Like, my whole thing was like, I want to know this story. I'm going to take Death Stranding as an example. Death Stranding had an amazing... Like, I was really interested in the story of Death Stranding, as all of you were. And then there were supplementary things. Like, you get these emails, and those things were crazy long. Or you get these, like, weird notes and documents, files, things like that. But you literally have to stop playing the game to read it. And, like, I'm playing a video game where I want to sneak around and not get seen by these BTs, or I want to fight this giant BT, or I want to take this delivery. Like, I want to be playing the game. I don't want to stop to read. Like, so I mean, that's kind of the point of what we're talking about is, like, how can they do a better job of keeping, like, because even if you're interested in what that book in Skyrim says, the fact that you have to stop this game where you can slay dragons to stop and read a book is a crime. It's horrible. Yeah. Like... necessary or not, like if you want to know it, like it should be more accessible.
I would also say, like concerning the books in Skyrim, though, this is just concerning Skyrim. They weren't really pertaining to, or most of them weren't even pertaining to the main story. It was just like
they were world building, Cran. That's what we're talking about. They were building to the lore.
Right.
So we're talking about a better way
but they would also help like recap like what happened in previous games. I never actually played any other Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
Right. And it was very valuable for me to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ev, you were saying that like we've talked about like ways that they've like so you had some good ways that's used in current gaming.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like how well, immediately what came to mind was like, where have I seen this done better? Because the idea of making the world feel bigger and like it actually has a history and stuff, like I get that can be tough to shoehorn into a medium where it's not passive, like you said, you can be slaying dragons, so you probably don't want to have to watch a cutscene every like couple of minutes to be like, you
Yeah.
enter a house and it's like a cutscene about the family and their history and all, and it's like, okay, I want to play this game. What is this, a fucking Metal Gear? So like, so one game that came to mind, and I thought about this was, and I don't know how well this would work throughout like other titles, but Final Fantasy 12. It starts off actually during a war that most of the rest of the game takes place after, and most of the rest of the game is about like what happened during the war and like why people are upset about it, and it doubles as backstory and tutorial, which I was like, oh, okay, because you're playing as the protagonist's older brother, and he's in a war with the protagonist's mentor, like they're working together, and you see like who was fighting and who was there, and it's also teaching you how to fight so that when you get into the main game, like you've already been tutorialized, but you've also learned like the history. And I was thinking how like that's a pretty cool way to do it. I don't know if you could do that for everything as far as like history building, but I do think that getting to like first-hand experience the history would be cooler than like just reading about it.
Yeah. That's true, like making it an actual gameplay element where you're playing like you with the rest of the game.
Right.
I would say
those
the amount of information matters as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I mean, if you couldn't do it for like every little piece of of game history, like it would have to be like the more major points. But the thing about world building is that it is often, like we were saying, optional. So like for instance, this was kind of a missed opportunity, but in Anthem, they talk about the siege on like the main, freelancer city, or like the big city that gets attacked and destroyed, and they have a cutscene of this really badass battle where the freelancers are fighting like the invading forces, and it would have been a great opportunity for them to let you play that battle, but I think that if they had stuff like that where you go to talk to somebody and they're like, oh, have you ever heard about how this crater came to be, and like you could choose to listen or not, but if you choose to listen, you could actually like see it, like you could go like live that experience out and like take part in it.
Give an entertaining aspect to it.
Right, and I get that it's one of those things where we're asking for a lot more work on the part of the developer, because then they'd have to like create all of these pieces
optional
of history
content,
right, create a lot of optional content, but I think it as we get into like the PS5 era and stuff, that could be really cool.
Sure.
And I mean, if you think about it, that's kind of side quests, so like even just implementing the lore into the side quests in a fun way would make a huge difference. So,
I just think that in an interactive medium, it's kind of the best way to world build is to have you do it, and I think that it's unfortunate that it's sometimes easy to miss, but that's really what comes down to, is like how much do you want to know about the history. So if you have to go find it and you have to do it, like I don't know, I don't think that is a bad thing in a video game medium.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that.
No, I agree.
No. So that's my 8 cents.
Anybody else have any sense?
Well, some of the examples that I've seen that have done a spectacular job, in my opinion, would definitely be the recent God of War and Red Dead Redemption. In how God of War would specifically facilitate storytelling while you are traveling. So,
yeah, that's true.
You're not pausing the game. And whenever you're done traveling, they seamlessly interrupt the story, where Kratos is like, no storytelling unless we're on the boat or something like that. So
we'll finish this later.
You can you can hear the story at your own pace too. It's not going to force you to listen through the whole thing, and it's not going to just abruptly end and then you have to like go into the menu and like reselect the story or anything. No, it's going to continue the story where you left off the next time you're just in that travel mode.
That's true. And if you so choose, you could just row in circles if you really, really were interested. But there's also no risk of missing. That's a great point, Cran.
Red Dead Redemption did something very similar, where you would get a lot of information while you're riding alongside your gang members during missions. That's when the storytelling would occur.
Yeah.
Or at least when a lot of the storytelling would occur.
Right.
Yeah.
I would argue God of War did it a little bit better, but Red Dead Redemption, I would say there's a lot more information.
That's true.
And that's another point where the sheer amount of world building, I think, kind of matters here. I would say, like, the world of Elder Scrolls is so enormous that it really depends on just how much world building you want.
Yeah.
But I think
that's true.
But I kind of agree with you on that, Cran, and it's funny because like it's those are two great examples, but I do agree with you. God of War did it better because like I think it's and honestly I think it's because Red Dead had a bigger world to the point where like you were here, that was happening so much and it was kind of slowed down and it felt like 4. So it's like, okay, I have to ride to this other place.
Yeah.
In
Red
order to
Dead's a
get
slow
this
game
information
by default.
Yeah, it is. So it kind of felt like it still kind of gave that feeling that it was slowing things down because I wanted to know it, but it's also like, okay, like now I know they constructed a long horse ride for me so I can get as much. It felt like it was a slave to the length of the information they were giving you, but I think the key being that like God of War, again, like they would pause and then they would like essentially rewind a little bit when you jump back on the boat. You're like, oh, that's right, that's what they were talking about, but you still have a little bit of the context, so it continues it, and more games should really do that because the travel between like island to island never felt like super tedious. You know, they did just enough. They had a good balance to make it feel good, but give you that information, and you could choose to ignore it if you wanted. So
yeah,
they did it in Uncharted,
which I think is always
too,
key.
in 4.
Yeah,
that's true with the driving,
when
and
you're
it will
like
pause
on
for
that,
you.
the whole trip when you're like driving, which the driving in itself is like really interesting and cool, but they also I think they did a great job taking that opportunity to have Sam like tell his story instead of having you just sit down on a bench and listen to him, which would have been way more boring.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like using those, like in what?
I was gonna say like in Metal Gear Solid 5, where literally the last mission, they just have this like scene where you're on a truck with Skullface, and he's just giving exposition. You're not like driving the truck, you're not doing anything, you're just sitting there, and he's just talking at you.
Yeah.
And it feels so long and tedious. And the first time it's interesting because you want to know, but the second time it's really boring because you can't skip it. So it was just it's a bad example of how not to do it. It's like the opposite of Sam Drive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that Sam one is really good.
It's how seamlessly they can work it in, and like it's and I got to say, like, one of the things that they did so well in Red Dead and in God of War was trying to make it feel more realistic when you get interrupted. Like, Atreus will be like, "Oh, what was I saying? Yeah, so about the da-da-da," and and Arthur does the same thing too. Like, you're riding along and Jonah's telling you something, and then you accidentally run over an old lady and have to shoot a bunch of cops, and then you get back to it and Jonah's like, "Anyway,
so what was I
saying?" So as I was saying, yeah, Sam does the same thing. He just sounds pissed off. He's like, so as I was saying,
right,
because you jumped out of the car and like decided to climb up and find some treasure, but it still makes it feel human and it makes it feel natural. And it's not just like, okay, let me start this audio track over again.
Right.
You're actually you're continuing conversation that was happening.
Yeah, I think that was
so making it feel real like that is also appreciated and helpful.
Definitely. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention one that I kind of thought of too earlier, like in terms of interactive world building. Another game that I thought did a great job was Fallout 4, which not so much just in like what you find, but the companion backstories. Like, you can choose to go learn about these things, and like I guess I guess that's kind of side quests in general, but the way that they did it specifically, not for you to like get a thing, like you weren't like, oh, I want this power, or oh, I want this money. It's just like, I want to know more about this person. Like who was Nick Valentine before? Like, how did Caitlyn end up so addicted to drugs? Like, and you go and you learn their story, and I think doing that about places could work as well, where you're just like, you know, there's this bombed out building, and you're like, oh, like what the hell happened here? And Fallout does that sometimes. You know, like you walk in and you know, you pick up a key and you open a door, and then there's a monster and you kill it, and you find, you know, a hair bow that you have to bring to a little girl, and then, you know, you learn about why that was in there, you know, so that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But about the world rather than just like a mission or one character.
Yeah.
That's true. You know, I do have some thoughts on like ways that some things they could do to improve it, but I actually want to mention one other game that also does it well, and it's The Last of Us, because they do a good job of like kind of they take the moments, they pace it well so that it's action-packed and all that stuff, but they take the moments when the gameplay is naturally slowed down, like maybe you're solving like a quick puzzle, or you have to like traverse something, but like you're not at risk of like an action scene happening, but like Joel and Ellie, and this is good for games that have like a companion there, like they just are having a conversation and you kind of glean things from the conversation. They're not like, oh, let me tell you about the time, and just like terrible exposition. They're just having a natural, genuine conversation, and they found a good way for like Ellie to like, she's younger, so she doesn't know as much about things, you know, so she's got to know about like things in the world, and that allows Joel the opportunity to feel genuine when he's actually explaining it to her. He's explaining it to you, the player, but you know, it feels like he would legitimately need to explain this to her. So.
Well, and there's a term for that. They call it, I think they call it the audience surrogate. It's like the person who doesn't know about the world, and so they explain it to that person as a way to explain it to the audience.
Yeah. And that's a trope in and of itself, but like a lot of games try it and they don't pull it off well. It's very clear, it's very transparent what they're doing. They're like, so this is the confabulator, and it's like, yeah, I know, I invented the confabulator. I would know what the confabulator is, but they're like explaining these things like, as we all know, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But like it's most effective when they do it like with somebody who legitimately would not know, and it's believable they would be having this conversation in this moment in time, you know. So
right.
So it's good when they can do that well.
I also recall in The Last of Us, there's a lot of the dialogue is also optional as well. It's not guaranteed to happen. There is plenty that you're going to run into regardless, but it's also almost a reward if you take the time to explore the world. Yeah. But it's not like you're just sitting there reading a book. You're actually gameplaying. You're actually exploring this little library. You're actually exploring the upstairs of this little office and finding a note that is telling you to backtrack a little bit to this other room with a big red X on it. And sure enough, if you go back, you can find that, break in there, and now there's a note that's telling you a backstory of the city. So it's not like you just randomly found this note that's talking about the city. No, this is actually a secret, and you get more of the story about what happened here because you explored.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. And those little conversations, even like, it's nice and it's a good thing to do is when they have those, you mentioned it, but those little brief conversations, like you'll walk up to something and there's like a button to trigger a conversation, but it's a quick one and it doesn't slow things down, and it makes and it's, I don't know, it just gives you more information, and you can keep playing, and then you can trigger the cutscene or the conversation, but then keep walking to your destination where you want to go.
That's always a good way to do it.
But real quick, I want to also mention some things that like, and you guys have kind of already said this, but I think some things that like, I don't have any like specific examples, but I think things that would really help, especially based on the conversation that we've been having, is they just need to make it fun when you're actually, find a fun way to get this information. Like, give you a little mini game to play, or even something to do, like, you know, as we mentioned, the Sam thing, just driving around for a little bit while you're learning this information. So at least you can control the car, and even if what you're doing is pulling. Sorry,
the trick is making it fun.
Exactly.
Yes.
But just, you know, finding this little thing to do that is gameplay based, and even if it's just a little mini game, like you're trying to play a little mini game. I don't know how they can like insert in the story, but you're playing a game while somebody's like talking to you. Don't just have you play the game. Make it something mindless. Like again, like games that kind of can slow down and like you're solving this puzzle. Uncharted kind of does this, where you're solving this puzzle and the characters are talking, but like you don't need to like concentrate 100% on the puzzle. Like you can concentrate enough on what they're saying while also getting like thinking about the puzzle. Those are good ways to do that. Or even if you just kind of actually make it a puzzle itself, like if you need some sort of text thing, like make a fun little game. Like some games do this where it's like, oh, this note is one of those slidey puzzles. That's a that's a bad example, but it's something like that where it's like, well, if I'm just doing this to like if I'm only doing the puzzle to read the note, then I'm just doing this tedious puzzle to read this note that I'm kind of interested in, but this is just making it harder, and it's going to take me a while to read the note. Like, somehow you have to, like, solve the puzzle by reading this piece of information, and the information is actually, like, world building, and the puzzle itself is engaging to solve.
Yeah, I think that is really the best of both worlds, is when you can make... It's really making it engaging, because that's the whole point of gaming, is like, it's not to sit there and listen to exposition. And so many games struggle with that in the opening. They're like, how do we give you this backstory without making you watch a 2-hour-long cutscene of like, in the days before the nights. It's like, oh god, alright, here we go.
I want to toot God of War just one more time because that's reminding me of the Valkyries. They're completely optional bosses, but there's a very intriguing story related to them. And one of the reasons that I enjoyed doing that side quest wasn't so much the challenge of fighting the bosses themselves, but it was the fact that I was learning what I am believing to be part of the main story of what I believe is going to be a trilogy. So you're getting more of the story of what this entire trilogy is going to be about. If you go out of your way to fight these bosses, there's a bigger story besides the main plot.
I do love that. Yeah, that was such a cool way for them to optionally and very difficultly. I mean, I had to do it. Like I was not gonna give up on that. Like these fucking Valkyries, but yeah, I mean that's a great point. Like optional world building that is challenging, but opens up more knowledge.
And actually, that reminds me real quick. Just again to suck God of War stick a little bit longer. Mimir is a great element that they introduced. You can't always have a decapitated head hanging from somebody's waist to explain everything, but you're like walking around and you're like walking to somewhere and you're moving and you're doing action while he's talking to you and explaining things to you, and like you're not just sitting there while he's like bloviating about like, oh well, here's all the things you need to know. He's just like, he's there, he's with you, he's on board, but you can listen to him too and talk. And it's not just one-sided like an audio log would be. It's Kratos responds. Usually it's just grunts or something, saying something mean, but either way, he's still there. He's part of the conversation.
Head. What is this place?
Head boy. He's a very factual man.
He just calls
them like he sees them.
So before we wrap up, does anybody else have any other ideas on new things or any other observations to make about like world building and how it can be improved and why the fuck these places just keep doing it the same way over and over again? Anyone? No. Bueller.
Going once, going twice.
I think I said all that needs to be said.
Yeah. Hells yeah.
All right, just wanted to make sure. But yeah, so I guess that's what we have to say about this trope. Let's fucking clean it up, like developers. Let's figure out some new ways to do it. You can't just ride on fucking.
Some are doing it right already. I want to give them praise.
You can't just ride on BioShock's coattails for all these years. Like start innovating, figure out something else that's new and fun, and yeah, we're all on board for that. So anyway, as always, guys, thanks for listening. If you have any thoughts on world building and how it can be improved, or examples of games that do a really great job of doing something new and not just doing the same old thing that every other game does, hit us up. Let us know. We'll share all our social media stuff during the outro. But as always, thanks for listening to another fun-filled episode of GameRage. Ciao. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening to another episode of GameRage. All the music in our show is by Oz. You can find him on Spotify or oz.net. You can hit us up on various social medias such as Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find us all at GameRage Club. You can also email us at contact.gamerage@gmail.com. So, until next time, keep on gaming.